My phone buzzed one last time against the granite counter, then finally went dark. 41 missed calls. I stared at the black screen instead of picking it up, listening to the wind chimes clatter against the porch railing outside. The quiet didn't feel like peace. It felt like the moment right before a storm makes landfall. Then someone pounded on my front door 3 times, hard enough to rattle the glass. "Dad, open up, please. I know you're home." My daughter's voice. The same daughter who, 90 minutes earlier, had told me I wasn't welcome at her wedding. My name is Walter Briggs. I'm 66 years old, and if 3 decades in the furniture business taught me anything, it's this. The people who inherit your life's work are not always the people who deserve it. That morning had started ordinary enough. I'd woken at 5, same as always, ground my own coffee beans, and carried my mug out to the porch overlooking the workshop floor below my house in Hendersonville, North Carolina. 41 years, I'd run Briggs & Son Fine Furniture, though there'd never actually been a son, just my daughter Claire. And for a long time, that had been more than enough. My wife Diane used to joke the sawdust smell had soaked so deep into my skin that it would outlive me. She'd been gone 6 years now. A drunk driver on Highway 25, gone in the time it takes to blink. After that, Claire and I only had each other. Every school play, every scraped elbow, every 2 a.m. fever, I was there. I turned down a distribution deal with a national retailer because it would have meant 6 months on the road the year she started high school. I never once regretted it. Not until that Saturday morning. Around 9, I called Claire to ask what time I should get to the venue. "Hey, sweetheart," I said. "I want to make sure I'm there early enough to help however you need." There was a pause on the line, the kind that makes your stomach drop before a single word gets said. "Dad," she finally said, "there's something I need to tell you." My chest tightened. "Okay." Another pause. Longer this time. Then she said the sentence that split my life into a before and an after. "I don't think it's a good idea for you to come today." I laughed, actually laughed, because it sounded like a joke my brain refused to process as real. "What are you talking about, Claire? This is your wedding. It's complicated." "No," I said, "it isn't. Tell me what's going on." Her voice dropped to almost nothing. "Marcus's mother thinks it would be better if you weren't there." I blinked at the vineyard view that wasn't a vineyard at all, but rows of oak and walnut stacked to dry behind my workshop. "I'm sorry." "What?" "She thinks," Claire started, then stopped herself. "What does she think, Claire?" "She thinks you'll make the day feel less elegant." I sat very still. Less elegant. I'd built furniture that sat in 4 state capitol buildings. I'd shaken hands with senators over handshake deals worth more than most people's houses. I'd put my daughter through Wake Forest without a single loan, and somehow I wasn't elegant enough for a rented barn in Asheville. "Is this Marcus's mother talking?" I asked quietly. "Or is this you?" Silence answered louder than words ever could. Only 8 days before that call, I'd stood with Claire and Marcus under the big oak tree behind my workshop, the same tree Diane used to read paperbacks under every summer. I'd handed them a manila envelope. Inside was the deed to 11 acres bordering the Blue Ridge Parkway, land I'd bought in 1996 for almost nothing and watched appreciate into something worth $6.2 million. Not because they'd asked, because I wanted them to have a place to build a life the way Diane and I once had, from nothing with our hands. Claire had cried into my shoulder. "Daddy, this is too much." Marcus had shaken my hand so hard my knuckles ached. "We won't let you down, sir." 8 days. That's how long that promise lasted. "I hope you have a beautiful day," I told Claire on the phone. And I meant it, even through the ache spreading in my chest. "I really do mean that, Dad," she whispered back. "I'm sorry." "So am I," said. Then, because there was nothing left worth saying, I told her, "Understood." And I hung up. I didn't throw anything. I didn't shout. I set the phone face down on the counter and walked into my workshop, the one room in the house that still smelled like Diane's perfume mixed with cedar shavings. Photographs lined the far wall, 30-some years of them. Claire at 6, missing her front teeth, sitting on my workbench swinging her legs. Claire at 16, refinishing her first table alongside me, sawdust in her hair. Claire at 22, walking across a graduation stage I'd paid for dollar by dollar. I picked up the picture of her at 6 and stood there a long while, not moving, not thinking about much of anything except how certain that little girl had been that I could fix any problem in the world. The phone started buzzing again on the counter behind me. I let it ring itself out, When it stopped, I flipped it over. 41 missed calls. Claire, Marcus, a number I didn't recognize. 3 more after that. Before I could read a single text, my doorbell rang. And I already knew this story wasn't finished, not by a long shot. I opened the door expecting Claire. Instead, standing on my porch in a gray blazer, rain misting the shoulders of it, was my attorney. Barbara Whitfield had handled my contracts and my estate planning for 19 years, ever since the divorce scare that never quite became a divorce, and Diane and I patched things back together stronger than before. Barbara wasn't a woman who showed up unannounced. "Walter," she said, "may I come in?" I stepped aside without a word. I poured 2 cups of coffee while she set a thick folder on my kitchen table without opening it. She looked at me the way she'd looked at me the day I called to tell her Diane had died. "I already know," I said before she could speak. "I got 3 calls," she said. "Claire, and then somebody named Deborah." "Marcus's mother," I said. Barbara nodded slowly. She sounded frightened. That word stopped me cold. Frightened. 2 hours earlier, I'd been the embarrassment nobody wanted at the ceremony. Now people were frightened. Something had shifted, though I wasn't ready yet to ask what. I leaned back in my chair instead. "You know," I said, "I keep running the math on where I went wrong raising that girl." Barbara didn't answer right away. Good lawyers understand that silence sometimes carries more weight than advice. After a long minute, I kept talking. "I spent 41 years building a company." I paused. "But I spent 26 years trying to build a daughter who wouldn't forget where she came from." Diane and I met when we were both 21, working the same shift at a diner outside Charlotte. I built furniture in a rented garage with tools I'd bought secondhand at estate sales. Neither of us had 2 nickels to rub together. We had stubbornness instead. Diane used to say she didn't marry my bank account. She married the man who'd sand a tabletop until 2 a.m. because he refused to sell anything he wasn't proud of. When Claire was born, we made a promise to each other in that same rented garage. No matter how far the business went, our daughter would never learn to measure people by their money. For a long time, I believed we'd kept that promise. After Diane passed, Claire and I became a 2-person team. Saturday mornings were pancakes at the counter. Sunday afternoons were spent in the workshop, her sanding while I explained grain patterns, why walnut behaves differently than oak, why patience mattered more than speed. Every August we drove to the coast for a week. No laptops, no calls, just father and daughter and a cooler full of sandwiches. Those were, without question, the best years of my life. The business grew faster than I ever expected. In the meantime, interior designers from Atlanta started placing orders. Then hotels. Then a boutique chain out west. Within 12 years, Briggs & Son had a waiting list 8 months long. Money changed the size of my bank account. It never changed how I ate lunch, which was still with my crew, at the same folding table, same paper plates, every single day. Claire watched all of it happen. She worked weekends in the shop through college. She used to introduce me to her friends with real pride in her voice. "That's my dad. He built half this town's dining rooms." And then she met Marcus. To be fair to him, I liked him well enough at first. Sharp, ambitious, polite in that practiced way private schools teach. His mother, Deborah, ran an event planning empire out of Charleston, the kind of business that only survives on appearances. None of that bothered me on its own. Ambition isn't a crime, but somewhere along the way, appearances became the only currency that mattered to that family. At one dinner, Deborah corrected the way I held my fork. Another time she laughed, not unkindly exactly, but not kindly either, when I showed up in the same boots I wear on the shop floor every day of my life. Claire laughed too, quietly, barely noticeable. I let it go. Small moments rarely feel important while they're happening. It's only later you understand they were never small at all. As the wedding got closer, Claire called less. Our Sunday workshop time thinned out, then disappeared. Birthdays turned into rushed 10-minute phone calls squeezed between fittings and tastings. Whenever I offered to help with planning, there was always some reason it wasn't necessary, some vendor meeting, some call with Deborah's team. I told myself the story people tell themselves. She's building her own life. That's what daughters do. I never once let myself consider that I wasn't stepping back. I was being edged out, an inch at a time. 4 months before the wedding, Claire showed up at the shop looking nervous in a way I hadn't seen since she was 16 and had wrecked my truck. "Dad, we found the property." I smiled. "That's wonderful, honey." "It's expensive," she admitted. Everything worth having usually is, I told her. She laughed, then confessed they couldn't come close to affording it. I drove out that same afternoon. The land bordered the parkway, 11 acres of hardwood and a creek running along the eastern edge, an old stone chimney standing where a farmhouse had burned decades before. It wasn't just beautiful. It had bones. Walking it, I could already picture grandchildren running between the trees, Thanksgiving tables set up under string lights, a whole future taking root in soil Diane would have loved. I didn't see real estate. I saw legacy. That night I called Barbara. I want to buy the Ashworth tract. For yourself? No. For Claire and Marcus. She went quiet for a second. Walter, that's $6 million. I know. Have you lost your mind? Probably, I told her. But she'll never get a chance like this twice. 8 days before the wedding, we walked the property together. Claire, Marcus, and me, and I handed them the deed under that same big oak. Claire's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the envelope. Marcus hugged me tighter than he ever had. We won't take this for granted, sir, I swear it. Funny thing about promises, some of them expire faster than you'd ever imagine possible. My phone buzzed again on the table, pulling me back into the kitchen with Barbara. She glanced toward it. Aren't you going to answer that? I looked at the screen. Claire again. Call number 42. I turned the phone face down. No, not yet. Barbara finally opened the folder she'd carried in. There's something you need to see before you decide anything. She slid a printed page across the table. An email, sent that morning, Deborah's name at the top. She hadn't meant to send it to me. She'd meant to send it to her wedding coordinator, but Marcus's number had stayed attached to an old thread from the property closing, and somehow it had looped me in too. Go ahead, Barbara said softly. Read it yourself. I picked up my coffee, already gone lukewarm, and read, Honestly, thank God Walter isn't sitting at the head table. He'd embarrass us in front of the Whitmores within 5 minutes, telling everyone about sawdust and sandpaper like it's something to be proud of. Marcus agrees it's cleaner if he just isn't there today. Once the land transfer clears next month, we won't need to keep humoring him anyway. I read that last sentence 3 times, not because the words were unclear, but because some part of me needed to make absolutely sure I hadn't imagined it. The kitchen went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum. Barbara didn't say anything. She let me sit with it. Finally, I folded the page in half, careful, almost gentle, as if rough handling might somehow make it hurt worse than it already did. I suppose now I know exactly what they think of me, I said. Barbara looked me straight in the eye. No, she said. You know what Deborah thinks. I'm not convinced Claire believes all of it. I wish I had your faith in her, I told her honestly. People imagine betrayal arrives like a lightning strike, sudden and violent. It doesn't, not really. It arrives quiet, one memory at a time, rearranging itself until the whole picture snaps into focus at once. Deborah insisting the rehearsal dinner happen at her country club instead of my shop. Claire asking me not to wear my work boots to the engagement party because they looked too casual next to everyone else's shoes. The jokes, the distance. None of it started that morning on the phone. I'd simply refused to look at it directly until now. Love has a talent for looking away from warning signs, especially a parent's love for their only child. Barbara reached into the folder again. There's one more thing, she said, and slid across a second document. Unlike the email, this one I recognized immediately. The purchase agreement for the Ashworth land. I checked the signature line. Mine, then the ownership section. Briggs Family Holdings, LLC. Not Claire Briggs, not Claire and Marcus, my company. I looked up at her. I don't follow. You remember why we structured it that way, she said, and then it came rushing back to me. The transfer had never actually gone through, not yet, held for tax purposes until after the wedding, when the final trust paperwork would be signed and recorded. I'd barely registered the details at the time. I'd trusted my daughter completely and treated the paperwork like a formality nobody would ever need to revisit. So legally, I said slowly, the land is still mine. Barbara nodded once. Still yours. $6.2 million, I whispered, mostly to myself. Not because I changed my mind, because the paperwork simply never finished catching up to the promise. That's some kind of irony, I said. Barbara didn't smile. Walter, she said, folding her hands on the table, I need you to tell me what you actually want to do here. I already knew the question was coming before she asked it. I stood and walked down the hallway instead of answering right away, Past the photographs. Claire at 8, holding up a birdhouse we'd built together. Claire at 17, standing next to the truck we'd rebuilt one whole summer. Claire at 22 in her cap and gown, beaming at a camera I was holding. Diane would have cried seeing all of it laid out end to end like that. She used to say Claire could become absolutely anything, so long as she never forgot that character mattered more than achievement. I remembered something Diane told me once after Claire lied about breaking a neighbor's window as a kid. "Walter," she'd said, "don't punish her because you're angry. Teach her because you love her." I never forgot those words. Maybe that had been my mistake all along, spending so many years shielding Claire from every hard consequence that she'd never once had to sit with the weight of one. I walked back into the kitchen. "What would you do?" I asked Barbara. She smiled, sat around the edges. "I'm your lawyer, Walter, not your conscience." "Fair enough," I told her. The phone rang again. "Claire," I let it go. 30 seconds later, "Marcus." I let that go too. Then a Charleston area code I didn't recognize. "Deborah," probably. I let that go as well. The quiet that settled over the kitchen afterward felt almost peaceful. The first peaceful thing all day. For the first time since that phone call that morning, nobody was telling me who I was supposed to be. "I don't want revenge," I finally said out loud. Barbara tilted her head slightly. "No," I clarified. "I don't want to humiliate anybody, especially not my own daughter." The irony of saying that sentence out loud wasn't lost on either of us. "What I want," I continued, "is for them to understand that a gift isn't the same as an obligation, and respect was never supposed to be optional in the first place." Barbara nodded slowly. "So we hold the transfer," she said. "It wasn't a question exactly." "You understand what that means," she added. "The reception's on that property tomorrow. I know it. The caterers, the rental company, the string quartet. I know all of it, Barbara. This will stop the wedding cold." I shook my head. "No, it won't." I met her eyes. "The wedding can happen anywhere they choose to have it. What they can't do is celebrate on land that legally isn't theirs yet. There's a real difference there, and it mattered to me that she understood I meant it. "If this is truly your decision," she said, opening her laptop, "I'll notify the venue coordinator myself." "No threats," I told her. "No lawsuits, no drama. Just the plain truth, that the property remains under Briggs Family Holdings and nobody's authorized tomorrow's event." She typed quietly while the kitchen clock ticked behind us. When she finished, she looked up. "It's done," she said. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. Outside, the light was going gold over the tree line the way it does in the mountains, right before evening settles in. Nothing out there had changed at all. Only the people inside my house had. I expected to feel something like victory. Instead, I just felt tired, all the way down to my bones. My phone buzzed once more, but this time it was a text from a number I didn't know. "Please call. This is urgent." A second text landed right behind it. "The coordinator needs to speak with you before tomorrow morning." Then a third. "Mr. Briggs, your daughter has no idea what's coming." I stared at that message a long while. Something told me the hardest part of this whole day hadn't even started yet. I barely slept that night. Not from regret, but from one question circling endlessly in my head. When exactly had my daughter stopped seeing me as her father and started seeing me as an inconvenience to manage? By 6:30 the next morning, I was already on the porch with black coffee, watching the fog burn off the ridgeline, same as it did every ordinary day. My phone buzzed. "Claire?" For the first time since our call, I answered it. "Dad." Her voice cracked immediately. "Thank God." I stayed quiet. "Something's happened," she said. "I know," I told her. "No, you don't understand. They won't let us onto the property." "I know," I said again. "There's some kind of legal problem," the coordinator said. "I know, Claire." Her breathing went uneven. "Dad, did you do this?" I looked out over the tree line Diane and I had planted 3 decades earlier. I asked my attorney to pause the transfer. That's all. Silence stretched between us. Then, quieter. "You canceled my wedding." "I canceled nothing," I told her. "The ceremony's still happening at the church in 20 minutes. Nobody's stopping that, you know what I mean," she said, anger rising underneath the panic now. "The reception was scheduled on land that legally still belongs to me," I said. "So this is revenge," she said. "No," I told her. "It's consequences." She didn't answer that. In the background, I heard Deborah's voice, sharp and clear even through the phone. "This is entirely your father's doing." Claire covered the receiver for a second. When she came back, something in her voice had shifted. Dad, please, I need you. Those 3 words nearly broke me clean in half. For one full second, I wasn't talking to a 26-year-old bride. I was hearing the 6-year-old who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms. I need you, Dad. The memory hit harder than I expected it to. I almost said yes right then. Almost. Instead, I asked her quietly, do you need me, Claire? Or do you need the land? She didn't answer. That silence told me everything I needed to know. An hour later, Barbara called. The venue's locked down, she said. I figured as much. The caterers have nowhere to set up. The quartet's already packing their instruments. The florist wants to know where to redirect the delivery. She hesitated. Guests are starting to ask questions. I sighed. I never wanted strangers caught in the middle of this. I know, she said, but gossip moves faster than paperwork ever will. I imagine it does, I told her. Before she hung up, she added one more thing. Walter, yes. I think your daughter's starting to understand this was never about money. I wasn't nearly as sure as she sounded. Around noon, my landline rang, a number almost nobody used anymore. I picked it up anyway. This is Walter. My name's Renata. I've been hired as the day of coordinator, she said, sounding thoroughly exhausted. I hope you don't mind the call. Go ahead, I said. I've done this job 17 years, she told me. I've seen runaway grooms, tornado warnings, a groomsman fistfight once. I've never seen anything quite like today, though. I waited her out. Finally, she asked, did you mean for this to happen? I thought it over honestly before answering. No, I told her. I meant to keep a promise to myself. What promise was that? That I'd never reward disrespect with more of my money. She was quiet a few seconds. Then, softly, I wish more families understood that difference. Before hanging up, she added, for what it's worth, you're not the villain half these people think you are this morning. That afternoon, restlessness got the better of me, and I drove into town for groceries, nothing more. Hendersonville's small enough that privacy stopped being an option for me somewhere around lunchtime. The cashier at the market recognized me right away. I heard, she said carefully. I'm sorry about all of it. I managed a small smile. Appreciate that. Walking to my truck, an older man stopped me, cap in his hands. Mr. Briggs. Yes, sir. I ran the sanding room for you back in '04. I remembered him instantly. Gary Poole, one of the steadiest hands I'd ever had on the floor. I heard what happened today, he said. I nodded. He smiled gently. My father used to say, if a man's ashamed of the hands that built his house, he never really appreciated the house to begin with. His wife squeezed his arm. Thought you might need to hear that today, she said. They walked off before I could even thank them properly. Strangers showing me more grace in 30 seconds than my own family had managed in a full day. When I got home, 2 cars I didn't recognize sat outside my gate. Deborah and her husband, Roy Whitmore. Roy got out first, and for the first time since I'd met the man, he looked genuinely rattled. Walter, he said. Roy, I answered. We need to talk. I unlocked the gate and we sat on the back porch. Nobody touched the tea I'd poured. Finally, Deborah spoke. I owe you an apology, she said. I looked at her, surprised. For what exactly? We knew Claire wanted a smaller guest list, she said, eyes down. We didn't know she'd actually told Marcus to leave you off it. Roy rubbed his forehead hard. When we found the email chain this morning, we were already halfway to the church. Our daughter wrote every word of that email, and she knows it. I stayed quiet. No father wants to sit across from another man and hear that kind of confession about his own child. His pain was real, whatever else was true about the day. For the first time since this whole nightmare had started, it hit me that I wasn't the only parent grieving something today. A truck pulled hard into my driveway right then, and Claire jumped out before it had fully stopped rolling. Her wedding dress was still on, though the hem was streaked with dirt, and her hair had come half undone. She looked nothing like the bride from the photos taped to her bathroom mirror. She looked like a scared kid. She walked toward me slowly and stopped a few feet short. For a long 30 seconds, neither of us said a word. Finally, she managed, Dad. Her voice barely rose above the wind. Can we talk, please? I looked into my daughter's eyes, and for the first time in longer than I wanted to admit, I didn't see pride staring back at me. I saw regret. Whether it had shown up too late, I honestly still didn't know. Roy stood up quietly. I think this belongs to just the two of you, he said. Deborah nodded. and they walked back to wait by their car. Within seconds, the porch had gone silent, except for wind moving through the trees below us. Claire looked around like she was seeing the place for the first time. "I don't think I've ever noticed how quiet it is up here," she said. "You've been busy," I told her, not unkindly. "I guess I have," she admitted, eyes down. Neither of us rushed what came next. At 66, I've learned the important conversations never start with speeches, they start with silence. Finally, she took a breath. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what exactly?" I asked. She hesitated. "For yesterday." I waited her out. "For everything," she added. I leaned back in my chair. "No," I said. "Tell me exactly what you're sorry for." She looked confused. "I just did." "No," I said. "You're sorry today went badly. I want to know if you understand why it went badly." She opened her mouth, closed it again, and for almost a full minute, neither of us said anything. Finally, she whispered, "I took the easy path." I nodded. "Keep going." "I knew Deborah didn't want you there," she said. "I knew it was wrong the second she said it. But every time I tried pushing back, I just gave up instead." She rubbed both hands over her face. I kept telling myself it was only one day, that everything would go back to normal after. She laughed, bitter and small. "Guess I was lying to myself the whole time." "When did you stop standing up for the person who always stood up for you?" I asked quietly. Her eyes filled. "I don't know, Dad. I honestly don't know." I stood and walked toward the tree line, and Claire followed. The oak stretched out ahead of us, planted by a crew that understood something my daughter had apparently forgotten somewhere along the way. Good things take years to grow. Bad decisions happen in seconds. I stopped near the old chimney stone. "You remember this spot?" I asked. She nodded right away. "You buried Mom's charm bracelet under here once, didn't you? Worried the neighbor's dog would dig it up?" I smiled. "You were 7. Despite everything, we both laughed a little, and the tension eased, just for a moment. Then I turned serious again. "When your mother was dying," I said, and Claire's small smile disappeared. "She worried about one thing." Claire looked up. "Me?" "No," I told her. "She worried about me." Claire frowned, confused. "She knew I'd spend the rest of my life trying to make sure you never felt alone," I said, looking out over the land. "She was afraid I'd confuse protecting you with rescuing you from everything, even the consequences you needed to learn from." Claire didn't say anything. "She told me," I continued, my voice catching, "Walter, someday she'll need to learn love doesn't mean saying yes to every single thing." A tear slid down Claire's cheek. "I think," she said, "I think she was right about that." "So do I told her. Claire suddenly looked straight at me. "Did you ever actually plan on giving us that land?" she asked. "Of course I did," I said. "You weren't just testing us?" I almost laughed out loud. "Sweetheart, I spent $6 million. Nobody tests anything at that price." She shook her head slowly. "I can't believe I actually thought," she started, and couldn't finish the sentence. "I know," I said gently. "You believed I was trying to control your life somehow." She nodded, ashamed. Deborah had convinced her of exactly that, apparently, one small comment at a time. "I wasn't buying your obedience, Claire," I told her. "I was investing in your future, plain and simple." "Dad," she said, reaching into her dress pocket for her phone, "I think you need to see these." The screen filled with messages, dozens of them, none from her, all from Deborah. As I scrolled through them, my stomach dropped further with every line. "Your father doesn't understand how these things work. If he shows up, the Whitmores' friends will think we come from nothing. He'll tell those workshop stories again. We're building a different kind of life now, honey. You have to choose which family you belong to." And further down, once the land transfer clears, we won't have to keep humoring him. I handed the phone back slowly. "When did she start sending you these?" I asked. Claire stared at the screen. "Almost a year now," she admitted. "And you knew," I said. "I did," she said. "And you still went along with all of it." "I kept telling myself marriage means supporting your partner," she said. "It does," I told her, meeting her eyes. "Just not when your partner asks you to betray your own family to do it." She nodded slowly. "I understand that now, Dad. I really do." Just then another car eased into the driveway, and Marcus stepped out, his tie already gone, his shirt untucked. He walked toward us like a man not entirely sure his legs would hold him up. "Claire," he started, then stopped himself when he saw my face. "This is unbelievable," he said, looking straight at me. "You humiliated her, humiliated all of us." I stayed calm. No, I said. You did that yourselves. He laughed without any humor in it at all. You destroyed her wedding over your own ego? That's what happened here. Claire turned toward him suddenly. No, she said. He stared at her. My father didn't destroy a single thing today, she said. You actually believe that? He said, disbelief creeping into his voice. I do, she said simply. So you're taking his side now, over me, he said. I'm taking the side of what's right, Marcus, she answered. His expression shifted from disbelief straight into anger. After everything we've built together, he said. She looked at him, sad now instead of angry. What exactly did we build, Marcus? A wedding that starts by shutting my own father out? What kind of marriage was that ever going to turn into? Silence sat heavy between the three of us. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of cut grass and rain coming later. Finally, Marcus looked at me. This is what you wanted all along, isn't it? He said. I answered him honestly. No. What I wanted was to sit in the front row today. The words landed harder than I expected them to, even on me. I wanted to walk my daughter down the aisle. I wanted one dance with her before some other man got the rest of her life. That's all I ever wanted. Nobody said anything for a long moment. Finally, Marcus looked away first. I didn't know, he said quietly. No, I told him. You didn't care enough to ask. A few minutes later, Marcus walked back to his car without another word, and it pulled away slow down the gravel drive. Claire watched it disappear around the bend. I don't think he's coming back tonight, she said. I didn't answer her. Some things only a person can finish walking through alone. Claire stayed standing beside me. Dad, she said. Yes. If you could go back, would you still have bought that land in the first place? I looked out across the trees glowing gold in the late afternoon light, and I smiled at her. I'd buy it again tomorrow, I told her honestly. She looked surprised, but this time, I'd spend a lot more time teaching you how to deserve it before I ever handed it over. Her shoulders shook, and she started crying again, harder this time. Without thinking twice about it, I put my hand on her shoulder. Not because everything was suddenly fixed between us, because she was still my daughter. And some doors, once you crack them back open, deserve the chance to stay that way. For a long while after Marcus's car disappeared, Claire and I just stood there together, saying nothing at all. The land was quiet again, the caterers long gone, the flowers probably wilting somewhere in a walk-in cooler nobody would ever come back for. An entire day of planning, gone in an afternoon. Claire finally spoke. I never once imagined my wedding day ending like this, she said. Neither did I told her honestly. I thought today would be the happiest day of my whole life, she said, staring out at the trees. It can still turn into one of the most important ones you ever lived through, I told her. There's a difference, she said. There is, I agreed. The happiest days give you memories. The hardest days give you character. Claire stayed until the sun went all the way down behind the ridge. Before she finally climbed into her own car, she stopped and turned back toward me. Dad, she said. Yes. Would you have even answered if I hadn't driven out here myself? I told her the truth. I honestly don't know, sweetheart. She nodded slowly. I guess I earned that answer, she said. She started the engine, then rolled her window back down at the last second. I love you, she said. The words caught me completely by surprise. She hadn't said them out loud in longer than I wanted to admit. I love you too, kiddo, I told her, and she drove off into the dark. And this time there was something like hope riding along with her. Not certainty exactly, but hope. Sometimes that's plenty enough to start over on. The following Monday I went back to work like nothing had happened, because life has a stubborn habit of demanding the bills still get paid and the crew still needs someone showing up to lead them. Grief or no grief. Word about the canceled reception had already spread through half the county by lunchtime. Some versions painted me as some bitter old miser who'd ruined his own daughter's wedding out of spite. Other versions had me manipulated by lawyers into it. One especially creative version involved a screaming match that never actually happened. I never bothered correcting a single one of them. People believe whichever version fits the story they already wanted to tell about you. Instead, I put my energy into something I could actually control. That land. That afternoon, I called Barbara. I've been thinking, I told her. She laughed softly on the other end. That phrase usually means paperwork's coming, she said. It does, I admitted. What now? I don't want that land just sitting inside the company forever, gathering dust, I told her. You've changed your mind, she said. No, I told her. I've changed the plan entirely. Over the following weeks, Barbara and I built something different from what I'd originally handed over under that oak tree. Not a simple gift this time, a proper family trust instead. The land would eventually belong to Claire, but not automatically, and not all at once. There'd be conditions attached, financial literacy courses, community service hours, real participation in running parts of the business, yearly reviews with an independent trustee overseeing all of it. If she ended up owning that land one day, it would be because she'd become someone capable of protecting what her mother and I had spent a lifetime building, not simply because she happened to be my daughter. When Barbara finished drafting the final version, she looked up and smiled at me. "Diane would approve of this," she said. I looked out the window at the tree line. "I hope so," I told her. 3 weeks later, Claire called. Not for money, not asking about the land at all. She wanted breakfast, just the two of us, same as always. We met at the diner where we used to eat pancakes every single Saturday when she was small, back before any of this. The waitress recognized us both the second we walked in. "There's my favorite too," she said, smiling. "I hope we can still be that," Claire said quietly. Over pancakes and coffee, we talked for almost 3 hours straight. Not about lawyers, not about land, not about the wedding that never happened. We talked about Diane instead. Claire admitted there were whole stretches of her mother she barely remembered clearly anymore, so I told her things she'd never heard before. How Diane once burned an entire pot roast because she got distracted teaching the neighbor kids how to whittle. How she used to dance barefoot in our kitchen the second any old Otis Redding song came on the radio. How she'd made me swear I'd never let success turn either of us into people who forgot where we started out. Claire listened quietly the whole time, wiping her eyes more than once. "I've spent so long chasing some life I thought I was supposed to want," she said finally, "that I think I forgot the life she actually wanted for me." A month after that, she asked if we could walk the property together. We did, and neither of us mentioned ownership even once the entire afternoon. Instead, I taught her how to read the health of a hardwood stand, how weather changes affect a harvest year, why patience always beats speed in this business, and most others too. Near the old stone chimney, she stopped walking. "Dad," she said, "I've actually been seeing a counselor since everything happened." I looked at her. "Good," I said, and I meant it fully. "I realized something," she told me. "What's that?" "I spent most of my adult life trying to impress people who were never going to respect me anyway," she said, laughing a little at herself. "Funny part is, the one person whose respect I already had, I'd basically stopped noticing entirely." I put my hand on her shoulder. "It's not too late," I told her. "No," she said, smiling for real this time. "It isn't. People sometimes still ask me what became of Marcus. The truth is simple enough. About 2 months after the wedding that never happened, he and Claire called off the engagement completely. No dramatic final blow-up, no lawyers involved, just the quiet, painful understanding that they'd been building toward two very different futures the whole time, without either of them saying so out loud. I don't carry any hate for him. Hatred's too heavy to lug around for very long, and I've got better things to do with what time I've got left. I hope he learns the same lesson Claire eventually did. Character always outlasts appearances, every single time, given enough years to prove it. Last spring, that same 11 acres hosted something a lot more meaningful than any wedding reception ever could have. We ran a charity build day for veterans and local families, rebuilding after the flooding 2 counties over, teaching basic woodworking, handing out furniture built by hand right there on site. Claire organized nearly the whole thing herself. She worked shoulder to shoulder with crew members she'd once looked straight past without seeing. She shook every single volunteer's hand personally. Late in the afternoon, I watched her help an elderly veteran carry a bookshelf to his truck. No cameras around, no one clapping, just quiet, ordinary decency. That's when it hit me clean and simple. The real inheritance I have to leave my daughter was never that land at all. It was one more chance to become the woman I always believed she had it in her to be. Sometimes life hands you exactly that, not because you've earned it outright, but because somebody loves you enough to let you go earn it yourself, on your own 2 feet, in your own time. If this story reminds you of somebody in your own life, a son, a daughter, a parent you've let too much distance grow between, I hope you'll carry that thought with you tonight. Don't wait for a wedding, a funeral, or some crisis to finally say the thing you've been holding back. Life moves faster than any of us plan for. And if a story like this one means something to you, I'd be grateful if you'd share your own in the comments and stick around for more stories about family, hard-won second chances, and the quiet kind of strength it takes to finally do right by the people we love most.